So today's question will be anonymous, which means for any of you guys that are new to the channel, that means it's going to be a Bob question. So before I get into Bob's question, I'm going to ask you guys a question watching it. Have you ever tried to get one of your coworkers that you work with or one of your friends, have you ever tried to get them to come train with you at the gym? Right? If you do jiu-jitsu, if you've been training long enough, probably that's happened. Well, after I read the situation to you, maybe you'll refrain from doing that, or maybe you not want to do that. I'm only half joking. But basically, Bob has a situation where recently he's wrangled one of his coworkers in from the office to come do jiu-jitsu with him. Sounds like a good thing. Well, he comes in and trains, and he's done a couple classes so far. And the other day, Bob finally had his first roll with his friend from work. And during the roll, Bob's taking it easy on him. This guy's brand new, and Bob's only been training for a year, but he's been training like 4 days a week. So he's he's a pretty good white belt. So as most of us know, if you've got about a year of decent experience in you, and you're pretty good as a white belt, you can take one of these people that's just a regular human off the street. You can just kind of tie him up in a pretzel if you want to. And that was the case with Bob's friend. If Bob wanted to, he could just do whatever he wanted, but he took it easy on him. Well, after their first roll, Bob's friend gets up, his friend from work. He says, "Ha, you've been training this long and you couldn't even get me." Now, Bob's thinking about it. He's like, "What?" And he just kind of lets it pass on and just goes to roll with someone else, but it kind of sticks there. And then later on, I think it was like maybe the next week or something, Bob's friend's at the office talking to the other employees. And, Bob's sitting there doing his thing and says, "Oh yeah, I went to Bob's jiu-jitsu gym and Bob couldn't get me. And I even submitted the instructor, like nobody could touch me. I haven't done this stuff. I haven't even trained." So he's kind of going into this thing. So Bob got peeved by it, obviously, as many of us would be like, "Bro, we're taking it easy on you." Plus, he said at one point, Bob saw that his friend was sitting on the bench taking rounds off because he was tired. So Bob sends a question, and here's where we'll get into it. He says, "Should I say something to him, or should I just say something to my coach, or should I just let it go and let this guy live in his delusion?" That's the answer. Or that's the question. So, brother, let's jump into it. So, man, I've had this situation happen several times over the years. You get people like that where they don't understand that maybe someone's just taking it easy on them for a little bit and letting them train. So what I would do first off is I would talk to the coach. I'd let him know. Say, "Listen, man, I'm just letting you know, whatever." And the only reason I would do that would because, here's an example. I had one guy at my gym, good guy now, love him. Great guy. But there was a period where he first came in, and when he started to get kind of decent at training, he started to tap and talk about it. So he would tap out someone else, and he'd be in the back room talking about, "Hey, I submitted you today, man. You couldn't stop that arm bar." Now, amongst good friends, we can talk trash a little bit, right? I mean, me and some of the guys in the gym, we'll talk trash, and we'll mess with each other, and there's that friendly thing. But again, you have to tread lightly with that because this is a thing that we're all very wrapped up in and it's meaningful to us. And so it's not a smart idea to poo-poo on someone's, their jiu-jitsu skill haphazardly. You should be very intentional and very careful about doing that if you're going to do that. And so we had to talk to him, and then eventually we had a situation where we kind of had one of the higher belts be a mat enforcer. Not to be mean, and I'm going to touch on this real quick because anytime I talk about mat enforcer, people can get their rash guards all in a bunch. When I talk about a mat enforcer, I'm not talking about beating someone into a bloody pulp or hurting them. And honestly, if I don't like the person and I don't want them to train, I will ask them to leave. If it's a person that I actually want to stick around the gym, I will first talk to them about the behavior. And then if they don't listen, the mat enforcer comes in. And what the mat enforcer did that day was put him in an armbar after armbar after armbar and was like, "Come on, man, why can't you do anything?" Right? And was basically giving him a taste of what he was given. And the purpose of that is so that people have a feeling. Because it's one of those things where you can tell a child, say, "Hey, don't touch the hot stove." You know what they eventually do? They want to touch the hot stove anyway, and they feel that it burns. Ooh, that doesn't feel good. Now they have an experience with it, right? We can a lot of times look at what someone's going through, but we don't feel it. And then once we feel it, it's completely different. I remember the first time I ever heard someone talk about an anxiety attack. I was like, "What the hell is that? Stop being a weakling." An anxiety attack? And then I was like 27. I remember after the death of my mother, I had one. And I was like, "Whoa, what is that feeling?" And I felt like I was going to die and I couldn't breathe. And I felt like, and then it was just like, oh, it's just this thing. So again, a lot of times experiences give us actual feelings to go by, and they make us go, oh, so that's what that was like. So having someone just kind of check him a little bit, not dangerously or anything else, and he's still with us even to this day, just kind of lets him know. So that could be a situation that your coach may have to run into if that talk from the office transfers over into the gym, right, Bob? So it's good to let your coach know. Now, as far as you talking to him, no, I wouldn't say you need to talk to him. What you need to do, though, is that the next time you roll with him, you don't take it easy on him. You let him know. You say, okay, like this is what it's actually like. And, you put them in their place, so to speak. An example of this for me was years ago. I remember training with a friend of mine who, we would train periodically, whatever. He comes in for a training session. It was like on a Friday. And, I hadn't trained with the guy for a while. And so for me, maybe this sounds weird to you guys, but here's the thing. For me to go 100%, that's like, that means I'm really cooking, and I don't like to do it all the time. I train at a very moderate pace, and I'll kick it up with the intensity from time to time. Again, I'm not the best guy in the world, but for most people, I can train at a moderate pace, and it's a good roll. When I turn it up to 100%, typically, it's not competitive, and it's not necessarily fun for me either because I'm not playing around. In my training, I'm trying to practice, right? I'm actually trying to work with stuff, not just beat someone up and be like, yeah, look how strong I am, And so I was training with a guy, a friend of mine, and we're rolling. We're just moving. I'm just kind of playing around, moving with him. I'm getting some sweeps and stuff, but I'm giving him a little bit of wiggle room to play with, so I can let him try to get a sweep and I can reverse it and all this kind of stuff. It's fun that way. Well, after the roll, I remember it was a 6-minute round. He goes, yes. And I was like, what? And he said, well, he's like, I thought you were going to submit me. I was like, he's like, but you didn't submit me once in that 6-minute round. And I said, oh, okay. Well, I was like, well, let's roll again. 6 minutes. And then it was like every 30 seconds I'm submitting him. I was like, well, we could have done this another way, but then I'm going to do it this way. And again, someone could say that's ego on my part, and it partially maybe is. But at the same time, I would like, if you believe that you got my best and that I didn't submit you, let me give it to you at least so you can feel the difference. Right? And so I think that a lot of times that can be helpful too, is giving someone that contrast. Another story. I know I'm handing out lots of stuff to you, and this video will be long, but hey, if you like the videos longer sometimes, then have fun today. One of the students that I had come in years ago, this was a female. Super tough female. She was doing great. Very tough roll. Well, she was telling me one day that she was rolling with one of my brown belts and that he couldn't submit her. He's like, oh, he couldn't submit me. I was all over him. And I'm like, well, he was letting you work. And she said, no, I submitted him like legit. So I came over to my brown belt. I was like, will you just roll with her normally so she can feel the difference? So that she actually knows where she is. And he did. And it was like, oh, that's what that's like, right? Again, it's completely different. It's like for anybody that's ever watched a really good black belt and then rolled with a really good black belt, it's like when you roll with him, you're like, whoa, that's what that's like. If you've ever had that experience. And so for you, I would just make sure I would turn the burners up when you're rolling with him, not in a dangerous way, but in a way where he can't move and he's just trapped and you're just taking the submissions when you want to. And you just, again, not with any sort of negative attitude, just, very unpersonal, just doing your business, right? And then if for whatever reason, if you ever get really peeved about it, and you'd like to bring up the fact that he's taken rounds out and that he's probably not as good as he actually says he is, you can always simply ask a question, right? You could say, Bob's puffing his chest up at the the office, lunchroom or whatever the crap you guys got there, right? And he said, yeah, I was doing really good the other day and I submitted everybody, did it, whatever he says, Well, you can say, well, Bob, I swear I thought I saw you sitting out for a couple rounds. Did you sit out a couple of rounds? Were you just really tired? Or if you obviously see him get submitted by someone else, you'd be like, well, I thought I saw you get submitted by that guy. Did that happen? You can just call out just the obvious and ask it in a question form, not accusing him of anything. And that's a way to just leave the truth out there and say, oh, this is what I saw, and let him, start to dance around it verbally, but without you actually saying anything to him at all. So that's just an idea. So anyway, a long video, maybe it'll be useful to you, maybe it won't be. But those are just some ideas to chew on in case you ever run into someone. For Bob's case, obviously he's there now. But in case any of you that are watching the video that aren't Bob run into a situation where you have a guy who's talking smack, they're relatively new, and they're living in this delusional world of thinking that they're brand new and they're submitting everybody, which we know that doesn't happen. A lot of us were just being nice. Those are some ideas and some strategies to consider. And guys, I'll talk to you next time.